So, Shaun, thank you for joining us here on BizJet TV to talk about the Global Express family. So, let's start off with a bit about your experience to sort of tell our viewers what you've flown and how you came to fly the Global Express. Over to you, Shaun.
Oh, hi, Fabrizio. Yeah, thanks for having me on board. I just want to talk about the Global series with you this afternoon. I've been in aviation 43 years and got 23 different type ratings with over 22,000 hours. And I've been flying the Global Express series for the last 5 years. Currently, I'm flying both the XRS and the 6000, both types, but I've flown the classics as well. So, as you know, the aircraft's been out probably 19, 20 years now. And over those years, Global have improved the product quite substantially from the original classic all the way through to the XRS and now the Vision cockpit. So it's quite a capable aeroplane.
Yeah. So what did you fly before you came onto the Global? What type of? Tell us a bit about your flying experience before you came onto the Global.
Well, I've been flying sort of 23 different types of aircraft, but most recently I've been flying the BBJ, Worldwide Operations, and before that Falcons and various other airline types before that. So both for the airlines and in the majority of my time now in corporate aviation. So flying the Global is been quite interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us a bit about your experience flying the different types of Global Express. Obviously, we've got the Global Express, the Global XRS, the Global 5000, the Global 6000, and you've flown all 4 different types. Tell us a bit of your experience with the different types and how you find them different, and how you find how Bombardier has improved the product throughout the years, taking us from the Global Express all the way through to the Global 6000, without touching on the 7000 because that's not out yet. Over to you, Shaun.
Yeah, the classic, basically the airplanes themselves are pretty much the same with the aircraft, the engines, etc. It's the avionics that are different in each type. So when you flying the classic and the 5000, that uses the Honeywell system, and the 6000 uses the Collins Vision system. So basically, from the sort of what I call second generation ethos of the Honeywell system, which was quite good. They then moved on to the Collins system, which is the 6000 in the 6000, and that has improved quite the aircraft quite substantially in the sense of situational awareness for the pilot and what the pilot information the pilot can get from that.
So would you say then with the new Vision cockpit, it's improved flight safety by improving the situation and awareness for the pilot?
Absolutely, yes. It has some quite nice features with the SVS, which is synthetic vision, and also in the HUD EVS, which is also on the classic as well, is incorporated into that. So having the big screens, the 4 big screens, gives you much better situational awareness, which of course, obviously, for the pilots today in the modern airspace is key.
Yeah. Now we've read a lot about, there's been a lot of people complain about the initial, the first few Global Expresses that came out. They were having a lot of technical issues. Have you experienced any of that as you've been flying these aircraft worldwide with the older versions, the first few versions of the Global Expresses? Have you had any technical problems with these, or have Bombardier managed to work through these and develop procedures and putting things in place to prevent certain tech issues from happening?
Yeah, obviously in the beginning, like any aircraft, to be honest with you, Fabrizio, you get technical issues, and Bombardier had worked through that quite well actually. But you still get the occasional glitches. One has to remember that these aircraft are really just big computers, and so just like your computer at home, if there's a problem, basically just reboot it, and that's exactly what you have to do on the Global. So if you have a problem with it, most of the time, if you can't solve the problem by using the QRH and the checklist and something called SmartFix, which is a very good application that Bombardier has, which basically puts you in touch with the engineers as well. Basically you just have to reboot the aircraft. Normally, in my experience, it sorts the situation out. But any of these more modern airplanes, they're just big computers. So, basically the secret is to take your time when you start it up in the morning, don't touch anything for 5 minutes, go and have a cup of tea, and then come back, and normally it works absolutely fine.
Okay, talk to us about the different environments where you've operated the Global, different parts of the world, weather situations, and in runway situations. where it's been a bit challenging, and how the Global has performed in those situations?
Well, the Global, as it's its name, is a global aeroplane. I mean, it's got long legs, basically 5,000 miles, 6,000 miles from the XRS is the same. And it pretty much does what it says on the box, to be honest with you, Fabrizio. It's a really good aeroplane like that. So I've flown all over the world in it. Basically, it's a good, solid aeroplane. I mean, it can go into short runways and go off, hot and high. And it's got a lot of power, so obviously leading edge slats and trailing edge flaps, so you can get in and out of shorter runways, down to 4,000 feet with fairly comfortably. I mean, obviously then going out of 4,000 feet and trying to do a 6,000 mile leg is you have to go somewhere else and refuel, but you can still do out of 4,000 strip, you can still do 3.5-4 hours quite comfortably on a balanced field length departure. So yeah, it's got good legs, and it's a nice, comfortable ride. It normally cruises anything around 45,000 feet is its optimum, and it's comfortable up there. You're above most of the weather, except if you're going to the South Americas. You go to the ITZ, etc., or down to Africa. But on the whole, it's a comfortable ride. Passengers, like it. They love the space, of course. It's a very wide cabin, and most of the noise is down the back. So the engines are rear mounted, of course. So, but on the whole, I've been very comfortable in the airplane. I found it, does what it says, and Bombardier have done a good job like that.
Yeah, tell us about some of the airports which are more challenging than others, where you've been into with the Global.
Well, I suppose some of the shorter strips, probably in the Caribbean, St. Martin, one springs to mind. Yep. Bogota, which is, quite interesting departure out of there because of the high mountainous ground. Mm-hmm. In Peru as well, hot and high. And, you can take off, 10,000 feet pressure altitude, and, it's good like that. So you can go to those, destinations, which is obviously not the norm, but I've been there in the Global, and the client has requested that. So, and it wasn't a problem, as long as you do your homework, as it were.
Yeah, well,
so,
I mean, how does the Global compare to other airplanes you've flown when you're going into these type of airfields?
I think, they're all much of a muchness, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, obviously, certain manufacturers have their key plus points, as Bombardier has its plus points. So Dassault obviously short, hot and high as well. But the Global does a good job. It's that's why it's so popular.
Yeah. Okay. Tell us a bit about a situation when you had a technical issue and it had to be solved. What the issue was, where you were, what you had to do. How long it took for the engineer to get to you, what kind of support you got from Bombardier. Tell us a bit about that aspect, because obviously when someone's evaluating when to buy an airplane, depending on where they're going to operate, what part of the world, this is an issue which is quite important. If suddenly your airplane does go tech, what support are you going to get, and how soon can the aircraft be made airworthy again?
Well, I suppose, to be honest with you, it depends on what the problem is, of course. But, I mean, I've had a situation with a cracked windscreen where we couldn't fly. We were down in the CIS countries, down in Simferopol. Yeah. And so trying to get parts and stuff there was quite tricky.
Yeah. How long did it take you to get the parts there?
Well, we actually got, we were good. Bombardier did a good job. They AOG'd the parts. We got it sent from the UK. We got it sent down there, and we got it, by the time I picked up the phone, got it installed and flying again was 48 hours, which was pretty good considering, you'll have cure time and everything else when you're fitting a windscreen. So
what was the cause of the cracked windscreen?
Well, that was actually a situation that's been a bit of an ongoing problem. They had a bad batch, and, through hot and, the going up and down and thermal shocking caused some delamination. Yeah. And so
was this an older Global, or was it one of the newer ones?
This actually was one of the newer ones. It was a 6000.
Okay.
But that problem's been rectified since then. But I've had a few other problems where the APU's packed up, or we've had some bleed valves just stop working for no reason. And Bombardier being very good. They've got a good service base. You can get the parts out. And there's a lot of people who service the Bombardier products, so you can easily get an engineer in most places. I mean, obviously in darkest Africa and some of the CIS countries, it's a little bit more tricky, but there's always an airline connection. You can get an engineer, generally with the parts sent out. And if you don't have an engineer, some operators, of course, fly with engineers, so they fix it themselves. But But on the whole, I've been quite impressed with Bombardier's product support. Yeah, it's been good.
So, what's the worst thing that's happened to you on the Global?
I've not really had any horror stories for Brisio on the Global. It's been a pretty reliable aeroplane, and as I say, a decent, accomplished pilot won't have any problem with the aeroplane. I mean, one of the problems have been that a lot of pilots say it's very tricky in a crosswind, etc. But I've not found that. It's obviously got a big sweep on the wing, and if you're not careful, you could ding the wing on the ground if you don't use the correct technique. But Bombardier are very clear of the technique that you should use, and obviously that is covered in training. So I've landed in 35, 40 knot crosswinds, and I've not had a problem at all with it. But that's just me. I'm
but
sure.
You've come from large aeroplane experience. Yeah. A lot of guys that come onto these private jets, they rise through the ranks with the boss. So they go from a King Air to a Global Express in 3 years. They've never flown this big machine before, and they're probably the ones that end up, putting the wing onto the runway sort of thing and scratching it along the and that. But I mean, coming from a larger aircraft, obviously you're used to handling big aircraft, and so obviously the Global's not the biggest aircraft you've ever flown. So that's probably an advantage you have, and this is where I always say to people, the pilot is probably just as important, if not more important, than the aeroplane.
Yes, I'd agree with that. At the end of the day, obviously your experience is key. But Bombardier do a good job on teaching you using the correct technique. And I suppose with someone like myself who's older school, as it were, that's the way we were taught, to use the kick-off method rather than using wing down, which is what a lot of people and what airplanes people use, their technique they use. So, but on the whole, it's a good aeroplane. It's good in cold conditions as well. In snow and icing, very good systems. And it's easy, it's easy to operate. Bombardier really laid out the systems very, very well, and there's a lot of redundancy. And that's one of the things I really like the Bombardier product. When it comes to hydraulics and electrical systems, the redundancy is great, absolutely great.
Yeah, okay. So overall, then, your experience as a pilot and also the passengers that you've flown around the world are pretty happy about their experience flying on the Global.
Yeah, absolutely. I like it. It's a nice aeroplane. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the best aeroplane I've ever flown, but it's a nice aeroplane. As I said earlier, it really does do what it says on the box, and that's key, and the owners, from all my experience with all the owners, they're very impressed with the aeroplane. They like it. They love the cabin.
So let's say one of the people that's watching this interview right now, they're thinking of buying an airplane. When would you say the Global Express airplane would be the ideal airplane for a client? What kind of needs would this person have that would where the Global would actually fit those needs?
Well, I think it's very dependent on what the owner mission statement is. At the end of the day, what does the owner want to do with the aircraft? And it's very important that any management company or director of flight operations, chief pilot, sits down with the owner and finds out exactly what they want to do with the aircraft. And I think that then decides what aircraft you buy. The nice thing about the Global is that it's a Global Express, so it's got long legs. It'll do 6,000 miles, or certainly the XRS and the 6,000. The others, the Classic and the 5,000 is 5,000 miles. But you can also do short sectors. I mean, I've done many 25, 30-minute sectors on it, up and down. And it's an easy aircraft to operate, so you can do that. It's not difficult, but at the same time, it will sit up there for 12 to 14 hours. To any owner, I'd say, what do you actually want to do with the aircraft? And then some good things about good points about the Global is that you can do the short sectors and you can do the long sectors. So at the moment, if you think you're only going to do maybe 3,500, 4,000 miles. I can guarantee within a year to 18 months, once you start using the aircraft, you will go further. So you will use the full capability of the aircraft. Look at Bombardier bringing out the Global 7000. people want to go further and further these days. They want to go for meetings. It's a business tool. And it saves time and saves money.
Yeah. So what? Because obviously some people have got this bee in their bonnet. They want to buy a Boeing business jet, and I always say to them, let's just stick to the facts here. And the Boeing business jet, of course, has got a larger cabin, but it's got less range. It's got altitude restrictions, meaning you really have to operate it under 35 to 37,000 feet is ideal in a 737, which in certain areas of the world puts you right in the weather. But when you're operating something like the Global Express, you're above that kind of thing, and it also goes a lot faster than a Boeing business jet. And as you said, now Bombardier moving into the Global 7000, which obviously has 7,000 mile range, and in some cabins they also have a shower at the back and a proper stateroom like you do have on the Boeing or the Airbus corporate jet and that. I mean, what's your view on this type of market now? I mean, do you see more and more people moving towards the Global Express, the G650, these kind of aircraft, and off of the Boeing business jets and the Airbus corporate jets?
I think there's always a place for the BBJ, the Boeing, and also the ACJ, the Airbus product, for definitely heads of state and things like that, or if you're carrying a lot of people, I always say and I've flown the BBJ, for 10 years, with a client, and one of the problems we found was actually parking the wretched thing sometimes, because it's a big aeroplane.
Yeah.
So you'd often land somewhere, you could drop off the principal, and then you'd have to reposition the aircraft somewhere where you could park it for maybe a week, while the principal was having a holiday or whatever.
Yeah.
So yes, they do have their point. I think Boeing is still producing the BBJ series, 787 and various other things. So there is a market for it. But I think, obviously, you have to look at the operating costs. The BBJ costs, a lot to operate. Although it's an airliner, ironically, some of the aspects of operating a BBJ is a lot cheaper than operating a Global or a Gulfstream 650. But when it comes to the parking, the maintenance and stuff, obviously the smaller aircraft generally are cheaper to run. So I think it depends on, what do you want to use the aircraft for? What is your mission statement? If you're only flying, say, 3 or 4 people, on average, then the Global or 650 is great. You can take 12 or 13 people. It's a bit crowded. Yeah. 12 or 13 people on a Boeing, obviously, is much more comfortable.
Yes.
And the thing about the Boeing is that you have a big conference area, so you can have really sit down meetings. You've got a couple of bedrooms. You have a shower. So I always used to say it's a bit like a flying house, really. Yeah. Which is, if you want that and you can afford it and you have a requirement for that, well, then it's the right aeroplane for you. But I think a lot of people, as you've seen, moving to the Global or Gulfstream 650, the Global 7000, because they can get in and out of the shorter places, they're easier to park, and they don't have to pay so much for the landing fees and the maintenance. Parking is also another big thing with the Boeing. Costs a lot to park it because it's a big aeroplane.
Yeah, and as I always say, there's never a right answer to the question. Is a Global Express better than a Gulfstream G550? Because it always depends on what your needs are, and everybody's needs change. And as you said before, I mean, if you're looking at traveling with groups of 15 to 16 people, then the Boeing's probably a better bet for you. Hence, the heads of state tend to go for those type of aircraft. But if you're a business person, your groups of 3, 4, 5 people, then the Global Express will do the job. And obviously, with business people, very often speed is the key, and they're more careful about how much they're spending. With governments, they tend to sort of spend because they can, so to speak. I think you're right in your evaluation there. But anyway, Shaun, anything else you'd like to mention about the Global before we close?
No, it's a great aeroplane, and as I said before a few times, it does what it says on the box. So it's great. Yeah, it's a good aeroplane. I could recommend it to anybody. Again, as we both said, what is your mission statement? I think that is key to anyone buying an aircraft.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Shaun. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Friso. Take care. Bye.